Hey everybody, welcome to the CCHA show. Another week of conference action. Actually, we'll get a full week of conference action coming up here. Our last kind of mostly non-conference play was this past weekend. Here we do have obviously some tournaments and things going on throughout the rest of the year. But joining me today is Trent Singer from Sioux Falls Live. Trent, thanks for joining us once again. I know you guys, you're pulling double duty a couple of these weeks with your Reporters Corner show that we've loved so far. You and Jared Roboto are doing, but thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. Just fighting some vertigo, so I gotta take the glasses off and try to focus in. So if I lose my train of thought, I promise you, it's just the vertigo.
It's just the vertigo. Okay, well, yeah, you explained to me pre-show, and I feel bad, and hopefully you can get this figured out. But for the time being, yes, Trent will be. He might get lost, and we'll try to reel him back in throughout the show. But we're glad he's still coming on with the vertigo. But he's a warrior. That's what hockey reporters got to be like hockey players sometimes. Ryan Stieg joining us for the first time this year, covers St. Thomas for his website, the Triple Deke. I saw him on Saturday at the X. It wasn't the outcome that the Tommies wanted in either game this weekend, but Ryan, we'll get to that in a bit. But thanks for taking some time to come on the show.
Yeah, I had this small little window before I go to work on my other job, so this worked out pretty good.
We will get you in and out of here, not wasting any time. Let's jump into the weekend that was here, and we'll start off with the Tommies playing number 5 Minnesota. They go to Mariucci. I got a chance to watch most of both of these games. I was at the Saturday game, but it's a little bit of a similar script in that the Tommies scored first in both games. But I feel like the St. Thomas with the fans and everything on Saturday had a better chance, and they had some undisciplined play get in the way of them trying to keep up with the Gopher scoring attack. Ryan, what was your kind of takeaway from maybe Friday and then Saturday as well?
Well, Friday, it's like they got off to a great start with that first goal, and it was like it got steadily downhill. Like Bob Motzko talked about, it was a 50-50 game. It was kind of like you didn't quite know who was going to get their momentum going early on, but then the Gophers found their way, as they tend to do with their draft picks. They were able to get into a zone pretty quickly. But then Saturday, again, great start. Cooper Gay scores. My wife got a great shot of the goal going in, and we're thinking, oh, this will be a great highlight to lead the story with. And then that penalty happened and with Matthew Gleason, and it was just like the script completely changed at that point. And it was they scored 2 goals, and then they got a bench minor in addition to that major penalty. So now you're already down 5-3 on the power play, and they did the best they could to try to kill it off. But Minnesota has so many weapons, and they know how to get to the right spots. And that's as soon as they got their 4th goal, I was like, this is getting out of control. And they tried to fight back, but Minnesota is just so strong. You can't spot them a 3-run lead and 3-goal lead and expect to be able to battle back. Even though St. Thomas,
the Dodgers there,
I thought baseball for a second. I don't know why, but it was. They ran out of gas and were trying to play catch up the rest of the way, and you can't do that against a really good team. So pretty much is what happens.
Yeah, I think it's a little hard to see how good St. Thomas is, especially this early in the season. You have these non-conference games, you have to play them when you do because of how all the conference schedules are kind of structured. But it feels like this Minnesota team is certainly better than last year's Minnesota team. I think they're deeper, and I think it kind of bared itself out over the weekend and really over the start of this season so far. Not getting a chance to watch the Gophers a ton last year, but seeing them when they played the Tommies and seeing them in the NCAA tournament a little bit, this team does feel like it's closer to the team that went to the national title game a couple years ago than it was to last year's team. And that maybe just a little bit of bad luck that the Tommies ran into there, but also we talked about the 2 major penalties you can't take in a game like that. And certainly you wish to be closer in these 2 for the Tommies, but at least they've played these 2. They have the experience. They can take what they can get out of them. Obviously, Ryder Donovan is suspended for the first game against Augustana this upcoming weekend. We'll get to that on the second half of the show. But Trent, what do you think of the Tommies, and what do you make of their record? Doesn't look great right now, I guess 1-3-1 heading into conference play, but they obviously played some great teams. They beat a good Vermont team. They hung with St. Cloud. They lost 1-0. This is certainly still a very good team that had a bad weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's all. If you're a Tommy's fan, that's all you can really try to tell yourself. I mean, they're disappointing outcomes. You lose 7-1, 6-2. It's not what you expect by any means, especially after how you played this team last year. But I will say, for so much, and I feel like it's coach speak you hear nonstop from Coach Blasi is you hear it every week. We want to play to our identity. We want to play to our standard, and he just hammers that into your head at his weekly presser. And I mean, the reality is that that's what they need to do. They got away from that this weekend, and I think if they're able to get back to playing the kind of hockey that he wants them to play. This it's very team centric. It's very player led, player driven. I think that this Tommy's team is going to be able to turn around, and I think that could start very well this weekend against an Augustana team that also is looking to bounce back. But man, this Tommy's team is going to be fired up going into this series. Consider they went to Augustana last year and got swept. They're going to come into this series pretty motivated to get something done. So I fully expect St. Thomas to bounce back this weekend.
We will talk about that series in a little bit. Getting to Augie, they lost a pair of 1-goal games at St. Cloud. Certainly nothing to, shake your head at as far as Augustana fans, although they were riding high, right, coming off their previous sweep of Omaha, 4-3 on Friday, 2-1 in front of Christian Mans on Saturday. That was his collegiate debut. He wins a Rookie of the Week. He was solid. He was great. He kept them in the game throughout. Made a highlight reel save in there. 28 total stops for him. But Josh Kotai, he's had one of the better months of any goalie in the country here. So they have to feel good about the back end, and the scoring that they'd gotten previously kind of maybe dried up a little bit on Saturday. That's still it's a great St. Cloud team, and they have a great goalie as well, one of the best goalies in the country too. So we'll start with you, Trent, here. Obviously, the team you cover in the Vikings here. What was kind of the thoughts after this weekend, or maybe in between games, you had a chance to talk to Coach Raboin or any of the players?
Yeah, I'll get to talk to Coach Raboin tomorrow. But I will say, it's really hard because it's not like they got blown. They were competitive in both of these games all the way up until the very end. Even pulled the extra attacker and didn't give up a goal either night. It's just a lesson. It's just a lesson to learn that those little things when you start getting expectations put on you and you go into Omaha and sweep them, people are going to start looking at you expecting these things. And to rise to the moment, it requires a different margin for error than you're probably used to playing with. And so you see it against a team like St. Cloud that's played great to start this season. They're like 5-1 now, I think. Mm-hmm. They're off to just an awesome start to this season, and I think they're going to be a force in the NCHC, but it's really just hard to evaluate from Augustana's perspective because it's a disappointing weekend. If you were to consider this like a league game, they didn't come away with any points, but at the same time, you hung right there with them in both games. Christian Mans looked great the second night. I was glad to see another goalie get a chance for them. And he made just an unbelievable save, sliding across the crease in the second period to just rob a goal. And he looked great. He looked great, I think, throughout that whole game. And he's something that you can definitely hang your hat on from that series. I thought Josh Kotai he looked pretty good too the first night. Just needs a little bit more help. Owen Bond scored 3 goals for this Augustana team over the weekend. Just had an outstanding weekend. And like you said, I think the back end is where they're really able to rely, kind of lean on. This is a pretty deep team when it comes to their defensive core, and they're missing some pieces right now. They're going to get some guys back here in a couple weeks, and they're going to be even better. So yeah, from Augustana's perspective, it's just one you kind of got to move on from. But you also want to use this as motivation going into this weekend, as these games really start mattering, as we're moving into conference play. It's like this is an opportunity now to let's prove ourselves in this conference, and it's a whole nother measuring stick when you consider that they're going up against this weekend.
Absolutely, and St. Cloud's actually 6-1 now.
6-1, right?
But yeah, nonetheless, very good team, and that's what the CCHA's run into throughout this early stages of the season. I think they're now something like 17, 28, and 3, I believe, against non-conference opposition. Something I should probably
Mm-hmm.
fact check that a little more closely, but it's certainly. I think last year the league went something like 21, 51, and 10 out of conference, so off to a much better start. Regardless of how this last weekend went, you'd have liked it to obviously if you get closer to 500 weekends and keep that number around 500 and not see it kind of get out of hand. That's what you'd like to see, especially for the pairwise and for getting multiple teams in the tournament. You're going to have a better GLI. You're going to have a better Cactus Cup. These non-conference games that come in the middle of the year are obviously just as important, but you're still playing the likes of Minnesota and Michigan State and some of the teams you're playing out west there. So it doesn't get easier, but at least you'll have some more games under your belt by the time we get to that point in the year. Let's get to some other series here. Michigan Tech lost a couple to Clarkson, 4-1. That included an empty netter, and then 2-1. Ethan Langenegger kind of spoiling the fun up in Houghton there. Another former CCHA goalie that we've seen, I think, 3 of them now between Langenegger. Keenan Rancier was at Vermont, I think the Tommies saw. And then, of course, at Michigan, you had Ferris State. I'm blanking on. Ryan's not.
I'm kind
we're
of
all blanking on.
Is it Geisbrecht? Is that what it was?
No, Giesbrecht went to RPI.
Okay, yeah.
You could check that box.
There it is. There it is.
I didn't even do it that time.
Yeah.
Noah Giesbrecht's at RPI. And Michigan, the kid who got the puck stuck in his pads. So when they leave the league, they're dead.
Oh, yeah. Logan Stein.
Logan Stein. No, I love Logan Stein. He was great. I think we had him on the show. But out of sight, out of mind for Logan Stein. Anyway, no, it seems like the league keeps running into old CCHA goalies.
Yep.
And this time Langenegger got the best of Tech there. Certainly, I know that the Huskies outshot Clarkson by, I think, almost a 2-1 margin in the second night. Let's see if I can do this right. I'm wrong. 35-33. But at one point, it was closer to a larger edge for Tech. The second game went to overtime, and overtime can go either way, and we saw it go the Golden Knights' way there. With the Huskies also changing things up, going with Derek Malahy in goal. He made 31 saves. He was obviously very good. They're getting good goaltending from Max Varanen as well. He's got great numbers so far. It's been the scoring for Tech that's kind of been the issue that's led them to their early season mark of 2-2. They've only played 4 games. The 2 games against Alaska, had a weekend off, so a sweep and then get swept. If you do that in the other order, right, you're probably feeling pretty good about Tech, but you're saying, well, you're going to have some sky is falling type of takes if you do it in this order. But it's just kind of like it's all early season hockey. Clarkson is a good team. They've been a top team in ECAC, top half at least, for years. So I don't think these aren't necessarily bad losses, except for you'd like to have at least split at home against a team like the Golden Knights. Ryan, what do you think?
I've said before to people, I try not to judge teams in the first couple months of the season, because sometimes they're just still trying to get team chemistry going. If they have a lot of young guys, they're trying to get used to college hockey at the D1 level. It's just a lot of things come into play, and I'm not going to make a harsh judgment on Tech at all. I think maybe the week off might have played a little bit of a role, going into it. Cause when you're on a bye and you're playing a non-conference team that you're not used to playing, maybe it can have a little effect on you. Maybe the first night, I thought they played a little better on Saturday. But it just, I'm not going to jump to a big conclusion on them, other than I still think they're a good team. Losing Pietila in goal last year, going into this year, is a blow, because he was a very, very good goaltender for them. But they got some guys who are playing well in net right now. Like you said, Perry, the offense has been a little bit of an issue, but I think they'll figure it out. Teams usually do. Yeah, it's still it's the October into November weekend. It's like towing the line right now. So I would say give it around early December. Maybe you start to see teams start to show where they are right now. At about early December, around Christmas, you can have a more accurate depiction on where teams are at. But I've also seen teams kick it into gear in the second half and look like an awful first half, and then suddenly climb into second place in early February. So, yeah, I think Tech's going to end up being fine. It just didn't work out their way this last weekend, and maybe the week off played a role in that. I don't know, but I thought they took a step forward Saturday night.
Trent, what do you think about the Tech?
Yeah, no reason to panic right now. If you remember, this Tech team didn't win a single game in October last year, and by the end of the season, they were hoisting the Mason Cup. Like, this is just still a work in progress. They had a fair amount of turnover last year, and when you consider some of the people that they lost, Logan and Blake, being at the forefront of that, I think that this is going to be, these were growing pains that we were expecting. Max Vernon's played great up until this point, and he did not have the greatest weekend this weekend, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt for one night. Really liked what I saw from him in the second night. Great fight. Just like you said, they outshot him in both games. They gave up a shorthanded goal in one game. They gave him up a power play goal in the other game. They got to work on special teams. They got to work on some of these more finite things, and I think we'll see Tech, turn it around here before we know it. They're going to have a great opportunity this weekend in a game that means a lot to them. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Rivalry series upcoming. We'll get to those rivals there. Northern had Arizona State in town, 3-1 loss on Friday, and then a 2-0 loss. I think that definitely included an empty netter on Saturday. Lost in all of this early season. I guess the record's not great, 1-5, but Ryan Willette's been one of the best goalies. He's probably the best goalie on a one-win team there in the country. If you look at his numbers on the year, they are staggering. I have them pulled up here. He is 1-4. He's played 5 of the 6 games, 2-4-2, and he has a .941 save percentage.
That's just incredible.
He has the second most saves in the conference behind Noah West at Ferris, and it kind of tells you about where those teams are a little bit of an indicator of, they're seeing too many shots headed their way. And it doesn't matter how good your goalie is, if you're seeing that many shots, the percentages just aren't in your favor most of the time. But they're getting great goaltending. That's a good start. West comes over from Michigan. Willette was also a transfer there, I believe, from out east. I should look into these things. But anyway, what do you guys think about Northern? Ryan used to cover the Wildcats. We'll let you go first here.
Yeah, I covered them for 7 years before I switched and started covering St. Thomas when I moved back home. But it's interesting, the coaching change at Northern Michigan was kind of abrupt in the off season, and they had that massive wave that went into the transfer portal. So you knew going in that it was going to be an adjustment period with a new coach. I think he's going to do a great job. I think Dave is, going to get them back on track. It shouldn't take too long, but I think it was just, it's a new group of guys. A lot of guys left, who just graduated, and then so many left into the portal who were actually going to be on the team. So it's just going to take a little bit. They played well this past weekend against Arizona State. I made a prediction that they were going to split the weekend. It looked like they were on track to do that. Yeah. So I think the goaltending's there. I think it's just got to tweak some things on defense and get a little more consistent offense. The goals were kind of at a minimum, this past weekend. So if you put a little more, so if you get their offense going, which I think they will, I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for Northern overall, just because, with the coaching change and a bunch of guys leaving, it's going to, they're probably not going to have a spectacular season. I think, they might contend for home ice if they can get it together, but so it's just, they'll figure it out. It's just a little bit of an off weekend, but if they get their offense going, I think they'll turn it around fairly cool.
And I think the fact that they're still playing inspired hockey right now is a positive sign for them, and they're working hard, and they're in both of these games against a team that's now in the NCHC and a team that hopes obviously to be competing for NCHC titles. I mean, you play well against TC, you play well at least the first night out there, and again you get Arizona State on home ice, and they stacked up. They just didn't score enough goals. To finish my thought there on Willette, I didn't even realize this, but he started his college career at Wisconsin Eau Claire, which is D3, and then he went to Niagara a couple of years with the Purple Eagles, where he didn't see a ton of ice, but he's certainly getting the opportunity here, and he's taking full advantage of it. And it's great to see stories like this that's kind of the positives. We see it a lot more. I think there's certainly more positives to negatives than from the transfer portal than that we've seen over the last couple of years, and he's certainly turning into one of those. Trent, anything to add for Northern?
Yeah, Ulett has been the key for this team. I mean, he's kept them in so many games, and they were competitive in this series because of him. I will say the offense is one thing, but man, they give up 78 shots in this series combined, and then they block 35. Like they're giving up way too many chances, and that's just they got to possess more, they got to control the puck more. Obviously that starts on the back end. It kind of leads up to your front end. You talk about playing a 200-foot game. It's really kind of where they really need to concentrate. And I think that they're gonna figure some things out. This is Coach Rabwin at Augustana talks about it all the time. This is the time to learn. This is the time of the year to take those lessons on and move into as you kind of move into conference play. And so I think at this time of year, all you can really do if you're Northern is to try and create that cohesion as much as you can. And it's what every team's trying to do, but no team more so than a team that brings in 24 new players. I think what they really need to kind of get going right now is to discover sort of an identity right now. I mean, this is the best time of year to really establish it. And I think we're going to get a good measuring stick of what that is here in these next few weeks.
Yeah, we had Tanner Latch on this show a couple of weeks ago or last week. Everything's kind of running together already, but yeah, he was great just talking about his leadership and the group they have and what their kind of mentality is going into these non-conference games. So if you get a chance to go back and check that episode out, that interview out, if you haven't listened to it yet, great stuff on this show as well as the Reporters Corner, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later with Trent and Jared there. To Bowling Green, they played a home and home with Ohio State. Lost 3-1 in Columbus, did the Falcons, and then 2-0 is kind of the same story here for Bowling Green. They played well in both games. I know Marco Hunt, our director of officiating, was watching some of that. I think Don was out there for the home Bowling Green game on Saturday. He was at Ferris on Friday for them and the Beavers. But another close but no cigar. You think it's obviously a results-driven sport. It's Division I hockey, but the Falcons have to be. There's got to be some positives taken away, Trent, from what the Falcons were able to show against a team that's now in the top 15 in the country in Ohio State.
Yeah, I moved Ohio State up. I think this series said more about Ohio State than it did Bowling Green, in my opinion. And I said as much on Inside College Hockey this week. I think when you consider everything that Bowling Green has sort of tried to restructure with this new team, these offensive struggles are what you expected. Now, granted, I expected all these non-conference series. We talked last week, Perry. I mean, I was really excited for this weekend because I thought the CCHA showed really well in the first few weeks, and this was one of the series where I saw a legit chance that Bowling Green might be able to split and then also get a sweep. It's disappointing certainly that they were swept, but hey, they were competitive in both of these games. We're still in that time too, where we're trying to figure out what is this team offensively. They showed glimpses in these first few weeks of the season that they had turned things around offensively. And, this is a little bit of a step back. You come away with just one goal, you expect more. And so I think if you're from a Bowling Green perspective, certainly no reason to panic. This Ohio State team, I think we've taken a little lightly. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten this year. They still haven't lost a game through 6 games. So credit to Ohio State. I think they came out and showed that they are a top 20 team right now. And so we'll see kind of where they stack up as the season moves along. Cole Moore played great. You got to be pretty happy with the way he performed in net too. It's disappointing, like I said, but this is similar to me as the Augustana series. You're still competitive in these games. It's not like the sky is falling by any means. So I think if you're Bowling Green, it's another opportunity to rebound as conference play gets started here.
Ryan, anything to add about the Falcons? This home and home, obviously, you get the packed house at the Slate, which is always fun. It's a fun time. I think Bowling Green gets to play Ohio State in anything, but especially in hockey where it has the old CCHA kind of rivalry. Still, you can still kind of feel it in the building, I think.
Yeah, I've never been to Slater, but I've heard it's a fun place to watch a game. I'm hoping as my career goes on, I can start to travel a little more. I go into the out east parts of the conference are a little harder because I'll have to get a flight or something like that. But I'm hoping, I can get to Sioux Falls, and I've been to Bemidji, I've been to some and Mankato and St. Cloud and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I can expand a little more. But like Trent said, I think it says more about Ohio State this weekend. I think they're underrated. They're going to be a force in the Big Ten. A lot of focuses, of course, on Minnesota and Michigan State and stuff like that. But Ohio State is like sneaky. They're going to be an under the radar. I think they'll make the tournament. Maybe they can go on a run. But BG, they got off to a great start to the year, and they've just been a little shaky since then. But again, it's still October. It's just going into early November, and I would not jump to a big conclusion on it. I think they're playing a good team. An underrated team, and they just came up a little short. So yeah, it says more about Ohio State than it does against Bowling Green.
Last non-conference series last weekend was Minnesota State and UNO, University of Nebraska, both top 20 teams going in to the weekend, and I'm sure UNO is happy to not be playing another CCHA team after this weekend. 4-3, the Mavericks win. It was kind of a little bit hairy there, where the Minnesota State had a 3-goal lead in that game. Needed a late winner from Rhett Pitlick, and then in the second game was a 3-0 shutout. 27 stops for Alex Tracy. So you get a little bit of both there from the Mavericks, kind of maybe playing a little bit angry after their previous weekend for Minnesota State, and they certainly took care of business on home ice against an NCHC club in the spirit of the Mavericks trophy is now in Mankato. Trent, as someone who may or may not have known about this trophy previously, what do you think about the Mavericks and their weekend they had?
I mean, I think it's just an incredible weekend if you're a Mavs fan, because this is an Omaha team that
which
came
Mavs team? Which Mavs
team?
yeah.
God. Oh, here we go. All right, let me try to get through this.
Trent.
If you are a Minnesota State Mavericks fan,
it's
an incredible weekend, because you're going up against an Omaha team that was coming in pretty pissed off. I think I think we're fully intent on coming in here and spoiling the party. And we looked at Minnesota State after last weekend and we said, wow, that was a pretty impressive showing. You shut out North Dakota the second night. The first night you probably should have won. You kind of gave it away. And we're kind of going, well, what do we make? Is this sort of the class of this conference? And I think with this sweep, just kind of in your back pocket now, you kind of got to go, this is the team to beat, I think, in this conference at this point. It's pretty apparent, right? They're ranked. They're the only ranked team in the conference.
Up to 16 now, yep.
Yeah, up to 16. And they had Adam Isley still showing up. Alex Tracy had a great weekend for them. A lot to like about the way Minnesota State played against a very, very hungry Omaha team. So, I just think it's a great weekend if you're a Minnesota State Mavericks fan.
This is a Omaha team that beat the Gophers not 2 weeks ago or so. Ryan, what do you think about the Mavs, and how scared should the rest of the league be, I guess, at this point?
Well, the interesting thing about Minnesota State is, they blew a lead against UND, had a lead and collapsed, and UND was able to, force a split out of that. And on Friday, you wondered if that was going to happen again, because they had a lead and looked to be in control, and Omaha rallied and tied it. So I was like, is this going to be a case of deja vu again for the Purple Mavericks? And then they got it together and were able to, end up getting a sweep. I think they are right now the best team in the league. Again, I've said it already on the show. I don't judge in late October and early November, but based on how they've played so far, against UND, against Omaha, just the games they've played, they've looked like they are the team to beat right now. And I would say, if you were, and they are the only ranked teams, so if you are if you're looking to who is the class right now of the league, it's going to be Minnesota State, and we'll see if they can sustain it. I think they have the ability to do so, but it's a long season, so let's see how they're looking around Christmas time, and you'll have a more definitive picture on if they're pretenders or if they're contenders. So,
good point. As Trent mentioned earlier, we looked at where Michigan Tech was at the beginning of the season, where Bemidji State was, where both of those teams ended up. There's a lot of beginning, middle, and in between. A lot of things can happen. We did have two conference games in Big Rapids there with Ferris State and Bemidji State playing a pair. The Bulldogs winning 4-2 on Friday. Bemidji State coming back, getting a shutout from Matthias Scholl, 3-0 on Saturday. If you're not sure how a CCHA series is going to go, you can probably start with a split and then work from there, which is what we kind of got here. But, big kind of note there against the defending McNaughton Cup champions. That's what they are. Bemidji, for Ferris to come out and get that win on opening night as far as conference play is concerned. But, Ryan, what do you think of the Bulldogs and Beavers sharing the points? Obviously, look at the standings. It says 500 for each because we're going by points percentage. But this is just a new kind of way we're going to have to mentally look at the standings this season with teams playing different numbers of games. But, yeah, both of them are sitting at the 500 mark after two.
When I make my league predictions every week, it's like almost default that I pick splits because it's like I feel like
that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the teams are so even, especially at the start of the year. So the safe thing to do is to predict a split because, that's typically what you see. You don't see a whole lot of sweeps in hockey. Rico Blasi has told me several times that the hardest thing to do in college hockey is to sweep a team. So I think you're going to see a lot of splits this season. It was good for Ferris. A lot of people don't think Ferris is going to do a whole lot this year. And, getting a win against the defending conference champs is, a nice confidence boost for them. And, but Bemidji showed that they're, a good team as well, and they can bounce back well. So it's the conference, I think, is going to be very even. I think it's going to come down to the wire as it usually does. It's like, don't break with tradition. That's just how the CCHA is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a dogfight for the last 6 teams. The seeds are going to be decided the last weekend. So yeah, it was a good weekend for both teams. If you can force a split, you want to sweep, but if you can get at least one win, I think you can take that as a positive and, prepare for the next week.
Another thing to consider before we get to Trent is that any kind of points you can get early in the season are going to help you staying out of that bottom spot, because that means you don't make the playoffs. And that's a new kind of added wrinkle here that, if you're a team that thinks that you might need to be, as far as you talk about the EPL and getting relegated, you're trying not to be in that last spot is huge, and getting any kind of points you can get early in the season will help you stay out of that position, Trent, as we get your thoughts on the first conference series of the year.
Yeah, I fully agree with Ryan here. There's good things to take away from both these teams in this series. Ferris, a lot of people are doubting you, and you just went out and got a split against the top team, and a team that honestly last season, these two teams met in the first round of the Mason Cup playoffs, and Ferris had them on the ropes in 2 games. And we know how hot that Bemidji team was going into the playoffs last year. So that was pretty impressive in itself. And then to come out in that first night and hand him a 4-2 loss, you scored 3 goals at even strength, and you got a shorthanded goal to open the game. It's a pretty impressive showing for Ferris. Nico DeVita had a great weekend. He was named Defenseman of the Week. And then if you're Bemidji, you got the split. You went on the road and picked up a split. It's like it's kind of what you want out of this conference. You don't expect all the time to go in and sweep a team, even if it's a team that's considered the best against a team that's considered the worst. We know how tight this league is. We know what the margins are. So for Bemidji, I really like kind of the way they were able to bounce back, get that shutout the second night. You get a little confidence. Your goaltender goes out and gets the shutout too. So Scholl's got that under his belt. Here, Väisänen had scored 3 goals this weekend too. Just a great showing from him. So yeah, there's some good stuff to like on the Bemidji side too. These are 2 teams that certainly show what the conference is going to be about in the first conference series of the season.
That's a good place to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Steve McKinchak, CCHA and really NCAA referees. Covered numerous games across the spectrum, Frozen Fours, NCAA championships, multiple leagues, including the CCHA. We're happy to call him a CCHA official, among other, call it the Western referee and linesman consortium, whatever you want to call it. But referees are being shared across leagues more often than they ever were before. It's good for them. It's good for the leagues. So probably something that should have happened long ago, but we're happy that's happening now, and we're happy to have Steve. So we're going to hear from him in just a minute. All right, back here on the CCHA show with Trent Singer and Ryan Steed. Good to hear from a longtime official. He's He's officiating his 1,000th game this coming weekend at Bowling Green. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to our upcoming schedule. As we talked about a little bit here, we do have 4 conference series to get to. Let's start out of conference first, though. You have Lake Superior State headed to Ohio State, and not sure what to make of the Lakers so far. They've had some really good, offensive explosions, especially in their exhibition schedules, and they've kind of gone quiet in the goal scoring department. We've seen good goaltending play from one of their freshmen in Rourke Appleby. This is a talented team, Trent. I know you've probably seen quite a bit of them, and with your time covering the league as a whole and watching this group. But what's your kind of thought on Lake State going into a challenging road series here?
Yeah, this is a good little measuring stick for them. They're going to be on the road here. They're going to get a chance to see what they're made of in a much more hostile environment too. And hey, they've got an opportunity in front of them. This is an Ohio State team through 6 games is yet to lose. So if you can force one decision, just if you can pull out one here. And I think, Lake State has a lot still left on the table here too. We have, like you said, we haven't seen a lot from them offensively, kind of from what we saw last season, and we know what they're capable of. We know guys like Connor Milburn and guys like Dawson Tritt, what they're capable of. The Reporters Corner last week, we had a great talk with Grant Hyman. I thought he was just a fantastic interview. I like the leadership on this team. I like guys like Damon Witten kind of holding the reins for this team too. I think this is a really, like you said, a really good opportunity for them. We'll see what they're made of here, because this is an Ohio State team that we've talked about, I think is a little under the radar, and they're not so much under the radar anymore. They're getting the rank that they have. So, with those expectations, how are they able to sort of live up to it? A real opening here though for Lake State to go in and make a little noise too. You get a little hot here. You get a win the first night. We'll see what happens the second night, right? I think that's kind of the mindset. Just focus on Friday, and they'll go into Saturday and see what they can make of it.
You talk about this team. You talk about Tech having only played 4 games. This is another team that's only played 4 games. This is the 2 teams that have played the fewest number of games in the league. They're 1-3. They played a top 5 team in Michigan State already. A little bit disappointed against Stonehill, right? That was where you thought they would take care of business, and they only got the split. William Ulrich was a rookie of the week in the league, has 3 goals, leads the team. But you're looking for goals from other places, right? You expect both Milburns to be scoring. Connor more than just the 1 goal on the year. You expect more from him, being one of the forces in the conference last year. So Ryan, where do you think the Lakers stack up now, and is it still early to tell from you?
Well, I've said it the whole show. I may as well keep going with it.
Yeah, you can roll with
it. Yeah, I think it's still too early to tell, kind of like Michigan Tech. The game against Michigan State for the Lakers, the games against them didn't really go there where they were hoping. I thought they'd sweep Stonehill, and they just completely fell flat in that first game, but they were able to bounce back and get a win the next. And then they go to Ohio State, which, as we mentioned, is under the radar. They're very, very good, and it's going to be a good test for Lake State. I think like I said, I don't judge at this point, but if they can somehow steal a win in Columbus, that would be a huge confidence boost for them, and a way to say, hey, we're better than people expect. We can still get wins, and especially if they get their offense going this weekend. I think they can possibly keep up with the Buckeyes, and maybe they could steal a win. They just got to get that offense going, and maybe we'll see what happens.
We absolutely will. Getting to a rivalry series, a home and home, Northern and Tech. They played an exhibition game way back in the first week of the year, which Tech was able to win 4-3, but not much to take from that. I think multiple goalies were used on both sides, expanded rosters, systems not fully in place. And so, but that maybe when it comes to this game, there's probably a little bit more in it as far as an exhibition. So maybe you do take some from it as far as just like the energy and the chance for, especially from these Northern kids who are witnessing this rivalry for the very first time. They were in enemy territory, right? It was in Houghton, the exhibition was. Now they get the chance to play them in Houghton again on Friday, but then they get to go home on just kidding. At the Berry on Friday, home in Houghton on Saturday. But anyway, again, you're kind of expecting split when these two teams play, but obviously Tech with bigger ambitions, they're the ones who seem to be probably have more pressure on them. Ryan, you used to cover it. We talked about Northern. Do you think Tech has more pressure on them to be more successful, especially in this series?
I think so, at least a little bit. The Tech and Northern have this very heated rivalry, and I know both teams get up for it, whenever they play. Tech's actually had Northern's number the last few years. Northern will fight hard and they'll play well, but Tech usually ends up on the better end of it and ends up getting the win, or they'll end up getting the extra point in the standings. So I think Northern has a little bit of pressure, like, hey, we're going to change course. We're going to, now we'll be able to, take a heated rivalry and maybe try to swing it back in our favor a little bit. So, but I also think people are expecting more of Tech this year than they are of Northern. So if you have the reputation that you've kind of taken control of the rivalry, people expect you to play better and they expect you to get wins this weekend. So I think there's going to be a little more pressure on the Huskies than there will on NMU. But NMU wants to, they want to get league points this weekend. They want to, you want to sweep your arch rival, and you definitely want to win on the road in Houghton. So I think we'll see what happens. But I guess if I was a betting man, I'd pick a split, and people will say that's just a weak way of saying it. But that's
okay.
Yeah, that's probably what I would go with.
Just say what you feel, Ryan. That's okay. Trent, thoughts on this series?
I'm looking at the schedule, and it's kind of cool because we're getting Michigan Tech and Northern here, and it's probably third most interesting series to me. You know what I mean? Like, there's some good ones this weekend, and I think this one's right up there too, though. Like, this could totally. I like the dynamic of a Michigan Tech team that is, for all intents and purposes, they brought back most of the players that know and understand what this rivalry is, and they go into it with a lot of experience and understanding of what this rivalry entails. And on the other side, you've got a Northern Michigan team with 24 new faces. Most guys don't know anything about this rivalry. If they know anything about it, they're learning about it from their coach, who's trying to instill it and tell them, because he's lived it and he knows it, and he hates Michigan Tech. So, I
play in Northern, so yeah,
that's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see how that dynamic plays out. Does that pressure lay at all at the feet of Northern Michigan? Because I don't know that it does. I think they're the team that goes in is able to play the most carefree brand, and I think that benefits them a lot going into this series, and they're going to need that because Michigan Tech, it is early. It is just, we're approaching November here. It is still very early in the season, but at the same time, Michigan Tech has expectations, and this is a team that goes into this series expecting to win both games. And I know they're going to split, and they're going to play the home and home, and they'll probably flip it around. It's probably February is when they'll do the next series, and
usually toward the end of the season is when they do it again. Yeah.
So this early season test is great. Just an awesome CCHA series in a weekend that I think has got some good games.
Getting to another one of these, and it's almost like these are almost set up as like the travel partners kind of weekend. You have Ferris and Bowling Green playing. You might flip I guess if you were setting up travel partners, Minnesota State and with Augustana and Bemidji with St. Thomas, but these are a lot of regional type battles here going on with a couple of these teams. Let's get to Bowling Green and Ferris. This one's taking place at the Slate at BG here. Ferris has the one conference win under their belt. These teams have met in the playoffs a couple years ago, with the Bulldogs winning a couple of games in overtime. But Trent, what do we think of this this BG Ferris series? Obviously, Bowling Green thinks it's the chance to kind of jump ahead, as they did. I think last year they got a decent size lead early on in the season as far as the conference goes, and kind of got overtaken by a number of schools there. But I mean, Ferris confidence coming off a win as well. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, Bowling Green used this to catapult last year. They played Ferris State at home last year, swept them, got 6 points, and I could see it being a similar thing. Honestly, I think the way these two teams are heading into this series, you got a Bowling Green team that is going to be fired up and ready to bounce back and dust off that sweep from Ohio State last week. And if I was a betting man, I think I'd probably put my money on a sweep. But hey, anything can happen in this league. We just saw it last weekend with Bemidji going into Ferris and coming out with a split. So I could see a split totally. I mean, it's not out of the question by any means. But hey, I think Bowling Green has been playing well. Just move on from what happened against Ohio State and just kind of keep doing what you're doing, because I think the goals will come. They're producing chances. We talked about that, I think, last week, Perry. This Bowling Green team is getting shots.
Yeah.
They're getting opportunities, and I just think the goals will come. You just need to kind of stick with it. A really good opportunity here to just kind of get back on the right track if you're Bowling Green.
Ryan, what do you think about this one?
With like Trent said, with Bowling Green, you just put the Ohio State series, in the rearview mirror. Ohio State, like we've said before, is underrated, and they're very, very good. So how you played in that weekend, just kind of flush it and, focus on this week's opponent. I didn't expect Ferris to split last weekend, and they ended up, getting a win against the Manhattan champs. So I think it's going to be a tight game both nights. I think it's going to probably go down to the wire. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be a split. I know I pick those a lot, but it's early in the season. You're still trying to figure things out. And if Bowling Green can get its offense going, I think, they could probably get a sweep out of this weekend. But if they start slow, Ferris might strike quickly and, be able to get a split or maybe even surprise the Falcons. So it's going to be a tight, good series. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either night. So it should be a good one to watch.
Absolutely. Moving to Bemidji and kind of the scene of the crime, if you will, for the clinching of the McNaughton Cup. That was a little bit anticlimactic. We thought that we may see, the second game of that series matter. I don't think it did, with the Beavers locking things up, if my memory serves me correctly, locking things up in pretty convincing fashion against the Mavericks there. Trent, what do you see from Minnesota State, who certainly is the hotter team coming into this weekend matchup with the Beavers up in Bemidji?
Yeah, two teams that, I think on one side you've got a Minnesota State team that is showing itself to be kind of the team in this conference. And we came into the season looking at them, and they bring back a goaltender, they bring back one of the top defensemen in Evan Murr, and we were like, well, they do lose Sam Morton. What are they going to do offensively? And then the Rhett Pitlick stuff happens, and I think this Minnesota State team is pretty for real. Those last 2 weekends are no joke. And yeah, I know last time they were here in Bemidji, it was a sweep, and the Beavers ended up hoisting the McNaughton Cup. That's a totally different team. This is a totally different environment. I really like Minnesota State this weekend. I hope Jared doesn't hate me for this opinion, but because we know who he's pulling for. But I will say
he's supposed to be unbiased. He's right.
He's supposed to be impartial. That's true.
No beat writer is unbiased. You know that, Ryan. Quit. No, look,
That's why he couldn't come on the show, right? He couldn't come on. He couldn't come on and hear Trent talk about the Beavers like this. He's busy today. He can't talk about the Beavers and the Mavericks. Okay, I see how it going, Jared.
Look, Bemidji's got every. I mean, look, Bemidji was. They got to like what they did last weekend. We just talked about it. I mean, I think with what Bemidji did last weekend, there's obviously disappointing for the first night, but you went on the road and got 3 points, like, or I guess 50% points. Sorry,
yeah, 50%. Yeah, you got
50% points. So if you're Bemidji, you're kind of just going in and saying, this is our home rink. We're going to defend it. We're going to play our brand. We're going to play our Tom Serratori style. We're going to get the job done. So, yeah, this is a fun one. This is right up there at the top of the conference. I like this one, and I like the next series we're going to talk about. I think they're both going to be interesting ones. Hey, a split could be very much in the cards here. I just think at the end of the day, Minnesota State comes away with more points. Now, that being said, I think they could take one to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way I see it. I'm not like Ryan. I'm not going to sit here and pick splits the whole time. I'm going to mix things up, piss Jared off in the process. So
yeah, Trent's just going after everybody today. I love that. It's got to be the vertigo speaking.
Trent.
It's the vertigo speaking there. I'm sure
it is. It's the vertigo kicking in.
Ryan, what do you think of the Mavs and Beavers here? And you don't.
I feel like I should.
Everything's going to happen.
I feel like I should pick a sweep just to shut Trent up a little bit. Yeah, but it's a hard series to judge because Mankato we've talked about, they're very, very good. They've made a statement the first few weeks that we've talked about. They're probably the class of the conference right now, and then you got Bemidji, who has probably got the best goalie in the conference, and it's I wouldn't be surprised if Bemidji got goaltending that got him a win this weekend. And then you got Minnesota State, who's on fire. So it's really hard to say who's going to come out on top this weekend, because I think they're more evenly matched than what their record might say right now. So I don't know. I usually come up with my predictions like on Wednesdays, so I'll have to think. I don't know. If I'm under the pressure to pick a sweep,
you don't have to pick anything if you don't want to.
We'll see if I change my tune, when I type it tomorrow. But yeah, I'll go with the Mavericks. I think they'll probably end up getting more points this weekend. We'll go with that.
One more thing to add onto this series, and one thing to take into account. Bemidji is the top scoring team. I mean, the sample size is now 3 weeks in, so it is a decent sample size. This is top scoring team in the conference right now on home ice. So we'll see kind of like if Alex Tracy is up to the task too, because I think this Bemidji State team is going to pose a little bit of a threat. They're also, I think, the top point team too. They average more points per game than any other team in the conference, maybe more assists per game as well. It's a pretty connected team right now, and I think Bemidji can if they can lean on their offense a little bit, it's a whole different story than what we talked about a year ago with this team. That's kind of their identity. I think that's the team they need to be.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the ones we'll be watching closely here in the league office. But we do have to get to our final series of the weekend, and it's the teams that both of you guys cover closely. Ryan, the Tommies are hosting Augustana for 2 here, and this is where it gets interesting as far as the conference standings are concerned, because with Augustana only playing 16 conference games, every time you play the Vikings, it's a little bit more important to take points. And for the Tommies here, they get to go home to their home rink here. They were technically home on Saturday at the X, but what do you think? As I know Trent mentioned it earlier in the show, this is a team that got swept by Augustana on the road last year. And with the significance there, they're certainly at more full strength than they were last year as far as health wise. But they'll be without Shea Donovan for at least the Friday game there, just the Friday game. But certainly they've played well enough, especially at home, where they had a really good series against Vermont last time they were there.
it's this is probably the most intriguing, I think, matchup, and not just because that's where I'm going to be Friday and Saturday night.
That's part of it, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I'll see it live. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more excited about it.
That's
but,
okay. No, it's okay. It's okay to be excited about it.
But it's going to be interesting. I haven't
Yeah.
seen Augustana play in person.
Mhm.
I've watched him on TV, but what you see on TV is different than actually what you see right in front of you.
Mhm.
So St. Thomas needs to rebound. They did not have a good weekend. They looked good in spurts, but they didn't put together a good 60-minute game. So they're going to really want to get back on track. Got to get some league points this weekend and kind of just put last weekend behind them. They're at home, which I think helps because I know the guys get up to, they're more amped to play at home. They want to put this bad weekend behind them. And I think there's a little bit of pressure there. And when you have pressure, you tend to, play with a little extra, oomph out there. So I think it's going to be a very good series. It's hard to predict because Augustana played better last year than I thought they were going to do in their first season. And I think they've shown that last year wasn't a fluke this year so far. So I think it's going to be a tough one to call. Of all the weekends, I think it's the hardest one to predict because it's about, can Augustana kick into gear and showcase what they can do, or can St. Thomas completely bounce back and get the sweep that they're hoping for? So it's hard to predict, but it's going to be a fun weekend. And if you're going to be in the area of Mendota Heights, you should come check it out because it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And Augustana really showed, and they're 3-3, but they like a couple of 1-goal losses to St. Cloud are, maybe hiding how good this team has been this year for the most part. Luke Mobley finally didn't score in a game, right? Is that true? Trent, can you confirm that?
Yep. Yeah, no, that was
he'd been really hot up until this weekend, but
I believe his teammate now though is leading the league in goals though, in Owen Bond, which is
he had a great weekend. No, it's they're getting scoring from all over. The blue line is, I don't want to say we don't know a lot of the names there, but they're playing. When you don't know a defenseman's name, a lot of times it's good because they're not getting beat. It's kind of like a referee. You don't want to know a referee's name, or you don't know somebody's name, or someone. If you don't know the defender's name or something along those lines, or a pitcher's name, means they're not getting beat at least repeatedly. So that's probably good. But what do you take coming into this series?
Yeah, Augustana is playing. They need to be pretty happy with the way they're playing going into conference play as they're starting here. They're the number 2 scoring offense in the conference, and they're the number 1 scoring defense in the conference. And you look at the bottom of that list, at scoring defense, and very unusual. What you would not expect is a St. Thomas team down there. Granted, the Minnesota series last week skewed those numbers quite a bit. Yeah. I don't think they can take either of these goaltenders lightly. And Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. Are they going to keep doing the Cybele Trotter experiment? Is that kind of what the plan is?
Oh, who knows?
You got to imagine the rotation is going to continue.
That's probably going to be the case. It was like that all last season until the playoffs. So I would not be surprised if that keeps going. Last year it was Trotter Friday and Cybele Saturday, but apparently now it's Cybele Friday and Trotter Saturday. So maybe he'll play around with it and flip flop. I don't know. Rico's hard to predict, but I would assume the rotation is probably going to happen.
I didn't even notice that.
The thing with Augustana though too, you consider they're coming in and Perry, you touched on this slightly. The games are much more meaningful for Augustana when you consider conference games.
Right.
The other teams, I guess, they kind of hold the same weight, really, in a lot of ways. But for Augustana, these are the games you really have to get up for. And I'm curious to kind of understand what the mindset is like going into that and how valuable your non-conference was in setting up these moments. Granted, this will just be this season. Next season, they'll have a full slate of games. But these games mean a lot if you're Augustana. In terms of points percentage. So, you lose 2, that's it. You're not going to get to see that St. Thomas team again this year. You're not going to get to see that Bemidji State team again. You're not going to get, some of these teams who are more regional that you would see probably twice a year. You're not going to get the chance. So it's, from that perspective, I'm curious to know how if and at all it does change your mindset if you're Augustana.
Yeah, I'm sure if you ask the players on an individual basis, it's not going to make any difference. But just coming into going out of weekends where you get the full 6, or you don't, or you get 1. That's why I said it almost feels like it's the same for both teams when you're playing Augustana, because you're going up, you're directly squaring off against them in any kind of standing. So
true.
It's also their only crack at
Augie,
and so that's kind of where I see it from both angles. Is like, if you get swept by, say, if the Tommies get swept by Augustana, then that's just that much harder to pass them in the standings later on. So, like, if you want to win the McNaughton Cup, you have to take care of business against Augustana on top of the other game. Obviously, they all count the same, but just like there's got to be some kind of, like, at least in the back of your mind, or for the fans especially, right? Because the fans are the ones that are probably more concerned with, how many games you play against each team. The players they're in a mindset of sticking with the plan and, our systems and this and that, and the results are they're great and you want the wins, but they kind of come after, especially this early in the season. The players aren't concerned with the points percentage. Some probably might even not know what's going on in that regard as far as they pull up the standings on Monday next week and say, what is this? But it's just one of those things where I think it is big for both teams on either side of the coin when you're playing Augustana throughout this year.
For sure.
Anything to add, guys? I know it's a full slate here on Midcoast Sports Plus. Of course, the Lake Superior State games are on Big Ten Plus. But we do have all the highlights, all the especially the condensed games we have on Midcoast Sports Plus are a big addition here. You can catch up on all the games that aren't your team in under 20 minutes. We're excited about that addition, but also just the highlights are available all over our website. Trying to do more individual stuff. If someone has a big game or someone has a big weekend, putting those highlights. Obviously, the highlights of our weekly award winners go up on our YouTube page and our website as well. So, and obviously throughout the night, if you're following us on our socials, you'll see the biggest goals and the best plays on Instagram and Twitter that we try to get up and get folks out to know the games are going on, at very least, if not to see some of the great highlights of the day. Before we go, guys, anything to add before I let you guys make a plug for what you got going on individually here?
No, it's a good weekend for conference games. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
great.
If you should tune in. If you're not tuning in game wise week by week, this is gonna be a fun weekend.
Yeah, there's never better time to sign up. This is the league play. This is what it's all about. The hunt for the McNaughton Cup starts. The chase for McNaughton, if you will. Our friends up at Tech and their pod. But anyway, Trent from Sioux Falls Live. You've been covering the league. Obviously, Augustana on the forefront of your coverage there, but you stay in tune with the whole conference. That's why we have you on all the time, because you're knowledgeable. But where can folks find you, and where should they be reading you and also listening to your other the spin-off show you and Jared are doing?
Yeah, find my stuff at Sioux Falls Live. I'm sure I'll have some Augustana coverage here this week too, is just sort of a preview leading up to the St. Thomas series. But we got a great guest this week on the Reporter's Corner. I suppose this will come out tomorrow, Wednesday, right, Perry? So yeah,
You're correct, yeah.
I'll let you know. It's Travis Shouty from Ferris State, captain. Right. Looking forward to it. We're gonna get the chance to chat with him here later on this afternoon, and it's a great show, and it just kind of getting to know players across the conference. So looking forward to that one.
You can find that show right here on the CCHA CCHA show feed, the Reporter's Corner with Jared Orbedo and Trent Singer, and then Ryan over the Triple Deke. We mentioned that earlier, but where can folks find you, and what I know you've been doing some stuff for Minnesota Hockey Magazine as well.
Yeah, my predictions, as I just mentioned,
are
going to be coming out. I'll probably type them up tonight and we can post them tomorrow. So we'll see if I flip flop.
Yeah, no obligation to sticking what you said here.
Yeah, and but I'll probably have a preview coming out about this weekend. Maybe I'll get that tonight or I'll type it tomorrow. But and then Minnesota Hockey Mag, I just did a big feature on St. Thomas players Ryder Donovan and Jake Ratzlaff, and they're bouncing back from injuries from last season. And I'm gonna be working on another feature on a couple more players. Probably come out sometime next week, but you guys can stay tuned for that one too.
Awesome. Well, for Ryan Stieg and Trent Singer, I'm Peerless Garris. Thanks again for watching or listening to the CCHA show. We'll see you next week.